Welcome everybody. I'm Guy Finley. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of the Trusted Partner Network. I'm here today to give you an update of 1 year of progress of the Trusted Partner Network. Last year I was here at VETC explaining our program. We had literally just kicked it off, maybe 2-3 months into the progress of the program in general. But since then, we've made quite a lot of progress in terms of security for the media and entertainment industry, specifically for the Hollywood studios and television networks. So just a little background on TPN to refresh everybody's memory. Our stakeholders in governance essentially encompasses two associations. One, of course, the Motion Picture Association of America. The other is the Content Delivery and Security Association. I'm also the executive director of that association. But essentially, TPN sits at the intersection of our vendor community, the intersection of our content owners and content creators, that work across both of our associations, specifically on security. Here's just a quick list of all the content creation companies that are involved. As you see, obviously, the big six motion picture studios. And then we have CDSA. And CDSA actually is kind of a hybrid, because you'll see in this list, not only does it contain motion picture studios, it also contains television networks, production studios, actual companies that produce the entertainment, as well as some outliers that don't really fit into the traditional trade association for movies and television, people like Lego, as well as the international purview of what the TPN really is. Those are people like Sky and BBC and BT and Channel 4, Virgin Media. But quite an extensive list. I think we have about 27, 28 content owners within this community. And we are continually looking to grow it based around need. So some of the things that we're looking to in the future is also bringing in the MON 5s, the ZDFs, the international broadcasting community, to ensure that if they're creating content, this is their best path towards joining this larger pool to actually assess the vendors within their own supply chain. So what does TPN really do? We're centralizing data and we're optimizing workflows and we're scaling security for our entire business. We have a central consolidated database of vendors that have been assessed against this common control framework that our group has created. It's all the studio's inputs. We'll call them studios, even though some of them are networks and some of them are production companies. But basically, they give input into our program, and we bring it out to the masses at scale of the world. It's a consistent model for all assessment types. We've started in site security, which is obviously critical, actual physical assessments around site security of particular content production facilities. This could be swipers on the door or cameras in the corner or making sure that you have a security policy that's been vetted and is visible to your hierarchy, right? Your corporate hierarchy, your C-suite. And ultimately, it's that common control database that really speaks to the program and really puts us into a common framework that essentially level sets security for any facility type. Whether you're a multi-million-dollar, multi-based workforce, all the way down to people's living rooms, to be honest with you, right? We know we have a lot of mom and pops in our industries, so we had to actually create a program that was balanced enough to service these giant corporations as well as these small independent entrepreneurs that are doing very specific pieces of the work that we do in our TEM. And obviously, this is optimized to have the vendor own their security. Have them feel invested in it and understand where it fits in the larger ecosystem. The idea is that the vendors fund these assessments. It's an annual assessment, but you actually own that report. As a vendor, when you get assessed by a TPN qualified assessor, it goes into a larger pool, but you're given that assessment report saying this is the state of my business in this snapshot of time on this date, so that content owners can make their decision about working with you. And honestly, it's really 4 unique individual pieces, and that's what this graphic over here displays. It's a GRC, which is our overall tool. We call that the TPN platform. It's also an app for our assessors. So our assessors work on an iPad, not with paper and pencil. It's actually compartmentalized so that audit can be even more efficient. They don't take more than 1 day. That's another unique proposition around the TPN. And then our vendors work through the vendor portal where they upload information. It could be photographs of particular remediation items. It could be some type of policy. That's the place where they work. And then our content owners work through vendor roster. And vendor roster is essentially a pool of every single facility and knowing whether or not, has somebody visited them recently, have they had a TPN assessment, where do they sit in the security ecosystem with their own preparedness. This is a little bit of a framework overview that explains that a little better. I'll let you screen grab that if you're watching along at home. But essentially, we're trying to consolidate and make this an easier path. Not just an easier path for the studios, but also an easier path for the vendor facilities that have to undergo this assessment. And ultimately, this really was born out of the idea of driving down cost, driving down the time that it takes to do these assessments, time that actually takes the vendor away from the important work that they're doing for their customers, the studios. So we always bore this in mind when we created this program, was how do we do this effectively, efficiently, and also at their pace as well as ours. There's certain phases. Like I say, we're about in the middle of phase 1.3. I'll go into that in a minute. But ultimately, we started with phase 1 of site security. We also have a training module within the platform, an LMS, essentially, that is we're able to create content, whether it's very prescriptive based around an audit or just some instructions on how to better do things en masse. And the idea is we're moving on to cloud security. That's the next phase of TPN. We're unveiling that. We unveiled it in April at NAB from a product perspective. But we anticipating doing assessments in the first quarter of 2020. And this really talks, this slide also speaks to that reduced redundancy piece. The idea of individual studios assessing, CDSA individually assessing, MPA individually assessing. We wanted to put it all into one system and essentially let the vendors own and control their own interests within this business. And of course, what the TPN does for the vendor side is maintain this qualified assessor program, maintain that level of service, that quality assurance is what TPN provides to ensure that they're consistent findings, they're easy to read, and easy for the content owners to make decisions around that assessment. And ultimately, that's what really this slide illustrates. There's no such thing as a TPN certified facility. There's no such thing as I'm a TPN approved vendor. That is the vendor making the mistake and not understanding the language of the program. Essentially, all content owners make the decision around whether or not they are going to use that vendor. It's their approval process that we're providing visibility into, transparency, and essentially saying, you make the choice of who you want to work with. And if you think about the tiers of content and what we work on, we're talking about everything from your dailies of a reality show. Right? Not necessarily super crazy insecure in a sense that, I don't think that anybody's going to worry about the leak of the next episode of the TLC show. It's really got to be something that addresses not only that kind of what we would call tier 3 or tier 4, lower level content that doesn't need to be quite so secure, all the way up to the very top, all the way up to the Marvels of the world or the Universals of the world or the Lionsgate of the world, people who are working on brands, working on universes, and essentially their own little ecosystem that need that extra level of content protection. And what we do also in that assessment is we identify the guardian, the person that is really in charge of the security posture for the facility. And we like to reward them. So we send out an actual physical box to the facilities that have been assessed in the United States that includes a trophy, a mug, some swag to say, hey, you're part of this Guardians community. We want to engage you to have deeper relationships, not only with the customers, but also with the industry. So we try to reward them and make them feel, hey, you're the person that we're really relying on to spread this message internally. And that's been very successful. Right now, I think we have about 1,600 Guardians in our program. And they get a monthly newsletter. They get things that are targeted towards them, special offers and incentives to come learn, come be a part of the community, et cetera. Another critical piece of kind of TPN and something that's evolved since our launch is the idea around a media and entertainment ISAC. And ISAC is an information sharing and analysis center. Each industry has their own ISAC or multiple ISACs. There's a retail ISAC, a fashion ISAC. There's even like an elections ISAC for the country. The idea is we did not have an information sharing and analysis center for our industry. We had certain groups that obviously made a lot of progress in terms of sharing that critical information in a comfortable environment that obviously doesn't break the law. But we're looking to actually grow that community. And that's something that we've launched through CDSA as a partner to the Trusted Partner Network. So basically, it's a threat intel center. It does research and analysis on the threats that come in, as well as training and outreach regarding certain threats as they are appropriate to the facility that has been TPN assessed. In a perfect world, we will have guidance based around the activity of the global hacking network, right, which is out there. It's APT, it's an advanced persistent threat. When we get an alert that is around a particular software or maybe a particular configuration, TPN is designed to deliver that remediation, like what do I have to do to fix it right away so that my facility is not exposed to this cyber threat? That's really the purpose that the MEISAC is to serve for the Trusted Partner Network, is to be that mechanism to vet outside threats, interpret them for our specific industry, and then deliver to them to the appropriate guardian to say, hey, you need to fix this. This is high of mind. So it really kind of creates an ecosystem when you think about it. These are some of the pieces of what the MEISAC does for the participants. And it's something also that is new to our business. So we're starting very slow, and we think also the benefits out of that MEISAC will be more evident also as we analyze and distribute threat information to our industry. I spoke earlier about app and cloud, very important piece. We've started with site security because that's actually a physical assessment to a physical location. That's the most important piece. Honestly, this is the hugest undertaking for our business. In the past, we had disparate audit sources per that slide earlier, where Studio might go, or the MPA might go, or CDSA might go. The idea is it's that site security assessment where we physically come to the facility that is so critical. We need to see what's going on. And also with the one-year renewal, we'll come back and say, all right, what has changed since last year? You need to show me what's going on so that your customers have a better idea around what your security really is. And then, of course, everybody gets that wonderful certificate that they can hang in their lobby that says, hey, I have been assessed, this is my assessment date, and this is what I'm working towards for the year renewal. I'm not going to go deeply into app and cloud. I'm going to allow you to look at some of this. I won't step through it all individually. But the idea is this is the future of our business, application and cloud security. And whether it's through Movie Labs initiatives, through ETC initiatives, we realize that the next 10 years for our business is the most critical 10 years that we've had, I think, since the introduction of packaged media, where we really changed our entire business model around VHS video cassette. Right now, I'm talking like an old guy. You know, the idea is the next 10 years really are going to set in place certain ideas, certain collaborative efforts, and certain software and systems that will last far beyond any of the careers of anybody in this room or anybody watching right now. We're really building the foundational framework for the new Hollywood. The idea that we're trying to do with Trusted Partner Network is be the cornerstone of security for that new Hollywood and for our industry as we move forward. This is just a little slide quickly about our Qualified Assessor program. It's such a critical piece to what we do. We actually vet, train, and qualify the assessors that participate in our program. The idea there also is it's a market situation. We're trying to drive down costs on those individual assessments. When you think of the scale of 3,000 to 5,000 facilities and or application or cloud instances that we need to assess, we wanted to make sure that the market drove those prices. So it was affordable, not only for the mom and pops, but also for the big companies that participate. This basically steps through also, this graphic here, steps through the process of how you get a TPN assessment. And it's also something that over the last year we've known. We've had to educate essentially the market. Who are we? What are we trying to do? And once they learn the scope of what we're trying to do and the players who are involved, their customers especially, they understand that this is the program that's going to shepherd us into this next decade of collaboration and improvement of our industry. It's an entirely volunteer program. The idea being, if you're working with one studio or two studios, getting inside of this platform, it's a path to demonstrate not only to them, but to other people that may be looking for a particular service in a particular piece of the world. They know we've got somebody who's been assessed that they can look at and make a decision saying, all right, let's use this company. That's also a part of that market. Not just the prices of the assessment, but also what's the market for services around the world? What happens when we're in Bucharest and we need a dubbing stage on Tuesday? How do we make those split-second decisions? In the old days, you'd call back home, somebody would make a few phone calls, call a few friends, send a few emails, and then you'd be like, okay, go use this person. We want our business to be transparent in a sense of knowing what we can do, at what time, where in the chain we need that extra grease on the gears, so to speak, and solve those problems quickly and effectively. A little slide on our roadmap for App and Cloud. This illustrates also where we'll be by the end of the year. You'll hear a lot more about this in the beginning of 2020 as we launch this product. So essentially, it's a security ecosystem. Facility assessments coupled with the site security app and cloud assessments, mixed with the MEISAC threat data and application information around cyber threat, coupled with an actual individual that is in charge of it at a particular facility. That's really the ecosystem of trust for the Trusted Partner Network. We have a website, obviously, ttpn.org. You're welcome to go there and dig in, whether you're a vendor or a content owner or an assessor, prospective assessor. You're welcome to find information around there. We also have some media, other things, presentations available for you to listen. So this is contact information for myself, the CTO, Ben Stanberry, who's at Amazon Studios, Kurt Fisher at the MPAA, Keith Ritlop, who's running App and Cloud, and also the director of the MEISAC, if anybody wants to roll up their sleeves and get involved. Now, I know I only have a couple minutes left. I would love to bring up one of our constituency who happens to be here at the day, and I think we'll just stand here and do a little bit. Come on up, Brian. Introduce yourself. Yeah, there. Hey.
Hi, I'm Brian Ellenberg. I worked at Paramount Pictures for about 12 years, back before there was content security, which grew out of a need to, keep your content secure. And I also represented the studio at the MPAA, where we had competing companies coming in and pitching their audit programs for vendors, the brick and mortar vendors, and that has grown over time. I also spent 3 years at the CDSA, and then most recently at Marvel TV, and now at CBS Studios. I can tell you this is a completely invaluable resource for us. We use it daily, because productions move so fast when they call, and they don't say, hey, we're thinking about using a vendor in a few months. It's like, we're thinking about using this vendor now. Do you have any information on them? So I can go into the TPN and I can, within a few minutes, come up with a snapshot. Like, I can see the history, I can see if they're current, I can see where they are in the process. I've got contact information. At that point, it's usually an email, a phone call, a 5-10 minute conversation with the vendor saying, we've got a show, we understand that you've filled out your questionnaire, you're in the process of selecting the assessor, and we can have a real quick security opinion of a vendor. Sometimes we may go and kick the tires a little bit if they haven't gone through the process yet, but it gives us a lot of faith and reliability. There's a lot of consistency, and the vendors absolutely love it. We've had so many vendors that have come up in the last year. We talk about the program. Now they know about the program.
Right.
We don't even have to pitch it to them, and they're like, we're ready to do it. We're just waiting for someone to ask for us to do this. There's a consistency across all the studios and the networks of production companies, and it seems like everyone has sort of bought into the concept. And I know we're patient because it takes a little while to build up, and the more vendors that get into this, the more valuable this becomes. And we've really seen in the last year and even the last few months as more and more vendors become part of this. And we'll get to that point where there's a critical mass where they're doing their annual reassessments, which should be simpler. Like, say, what's changed in the last year? We know you've gone through this. We've already done all the heavy lifting. The assessor can come in and pretty quickly go through another round of assessment. But other things you talked about, the MEISAC, is amazing, because as a community, the bad actors who were trying to hack the CBS system are also hacking the Netflix systems, the ABC. So to have this information has really helped us as a community respond to threats. It helps us create some best practices, some guidance. And like I say, especially I'm looking forward to the next evolution, which is the cloud and app, which so much of our content now is being accessed on cloud, on apps, and we expect that that's going to be, the next level. And once we get at that point, we've got the physical, we've got the vendor, brick and mortar, we got cloud, we have app. As we build up this database, I think that what we're seeing is that our production people and post-production people, they don't necessarily call and ask about a vendor. They actually call and say, are they into TPN? So they're expecting that. So culturally, our production and post-production teams are now, they're relying on that. So we're seeing that as a great benefit.
As designed.
And the vendors, I think, like having like one more thorough audit and not a dozen. Yeah,
we've gotten a lot of feedback around that of like, thank you. Audit fatigue, right? Who knew? We knew that it was out there. And the question also is how do you solve it? It had to take something massive like this. Now, you also, I know from your Paramount experience, you also used to run audit teams that would go around and assess, whether it's a production or whether it's a facility, whatever, right? Whatever piece, and they're flying all around the world. There's always that challenge also where you look at it, it's like, how much can we cover as one studio?
You can't.
Right? Well, that's really it.
And what's funny, a lot of times, especially back in the day, you would sometimes you'd go to a place and they would like, we just had Marvel in here. We just had Fox in here. We just had Disney in here. And you were like, well, why are we here? What's wrong with this? Like, why are we all independently spending? Travel costs can get
it's expensive.
high, and you don't have the bandwidth to be as thorough as you do. And like I say, we're going to ask for a lot of things, mostly the same as what a Disney or Fox is. That we're all basically asking the same things. We ask it in different ways, and so they really get this audit fatigue. They're like, can't you guys just have one set of questionnaires that basically answers all this? But it's not scalable for each company to do this individually.
You also bring up, the idea of, so we're flying people from London, we're flying people from LA. One thing also about the TPN is we have qualified assessors around the world. Now, we're not saturated to where we really need to be, but the idea of our 40 assessors around the world, it's a shorter hop from London to the Middle East. So we may not have an assessor in Dubai yet, but the idea being, it should be a cost-effective way to get there quickly, and the facility shouldn't have to bear that travel cost, nor should the studio.
Absolutely.
That's the bonus on both sides.
And that's the great thing we see about the way the program is set up, is that all these assessors who are getting more and more experienced, you can really let them compete in the market. Who's doing the best audits for the best price? And a lot of times, as you pointed out, a lot of times the cost of the audit is the travel. It's like to get someone in LA and fly them into the Middle East or something, you're thousands and thousands of dollars. You haven't even started the audit yet. So we feel that there's a lot of value for the audits with the geographic representation across the globe. And we see it growing, and we're 100% supportive of it. We're at the point now, like say, if someone has started the process, even though they're like, hey, we just moved to a new location, it's going to be a few months, we typically just grant a conditional approval. It's like, hey, as long as you're participating in this process, you're answering the questionnaires, and the great thing is we get automated reports like every day. I can go in and look at
subscribe to a vendor. Yeah, absolutely.
You subscribe to a vendor, and you'll get notification anytime, like if they're behind on something or if they've completed a milestone. So the fact that that's automated, instead of me having to go through and maintain an Excel spreadsheet and update it and update it and update it, it's like I can go through and look up a vendor, or I just look for that email in the morning and I get that update. I mean, it's a great value, and it's allowed us to really commit resources elsewhere in fighting security, so that we know that those considerable costs that we've had in the past have basically gone away. If there's something on location, we tend to focus more on the productions themselves, which are very hard to have a third party go in because there's a lot of sensitivity to executives and relationships, so we tend to do those ourselves. But the fact that we have all of the bases covered, and especially once the cloud and app is there, it really allows us to be very efficient, very nimble, and really provide a lot of great security. And like I say, we actually joke that we're not really content security, we're really more content solutions. We help find them a way. Like, we don't say no. We're like, how can we say yes? Let's find a way, let's find a path, let's find a vendor, a technology, a workflow.
This is so critical too. So essentially another big piece of the TPN is we're moving from this culture of enforcement. You know, like knock, 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 we'll be there Thursday, you better be ready. Right? That was kind of the old like, hey, watch out, you know. CDSA is going to be here, MPA is going to be here, Marvel's going to, whoever, right? Insert whoever. We're shifting from enforcement to community. Because the reality is we're not expecting every facility to be perfect. Again, think of that tier level. Tier 0 being, Star Wars and insert your universe here, right? Walking Dead, whatever. I can start naming everybody, right? Yep. All the way down to that really kind of low level. Oh, we produce this little bit of content for these reality people. It's really nothing. We're just doing bumpers, but it's pre-release still, right? So still important. But that idea where we want to see the warts. You know, that's been some of our cultural challenges. They'll sit on our extended questionnaire, which is quite lengthy. The extended questionnaire is dynamic to your facility type, right? Depends on what you do. What are you, a dubbing stage? Are you somebody also that does multiple things? That lengthens the questions that they're going to ask about your environment. But the reality is let's get in there. Show us what you have. People sat on that and would wait, and we see the data that comes out of the tool. That's the other awesome piece about the platform, right? Because we're all on one thing. We're pulling data out of that system that we never really would have known. We look at a point where it's like, all right, what's the number one remediation, right? What's the thing that we need to focus on to get all these facilities up to that proper level that we find acceptable as the content owner community.
Yeah, and I think that the vendor community, they realize that this isn't an exercise to shame them, to make them look bad.
Right.
They actually are very thankful when you find something. It's like they're, wow, this is great. Or a lot of times that we find, we'll talk to them like, we've been wanting to do this for years. We've been wanting to put in access control readers on the server room. It's like, it's not a great cost. We're not saying put an access control reader on every door in your facility. Put it where it's critical. And they're like, we've been wanting to do this. I've been trying to get approval for this. And now we can do this because there's an independent third party that points out some of the security gaps and some of the things we'd like to see. So we're finding that it's actually very helpful for the vendors to help make improvements that they wanted to change anyway.
That's right. And kind of honing it down. What do they need? They want the instructions. It's like they're not sitting there saying, well, we're fine. Yeah. This is something where it's like, you're our customer. Tell us what we need. Yeah. Now this is just a broader customer base than having one customer come in and say, do this, do that.
Absolutely.
And honestly, it also should be that if they are in that security posture, right, and they have been assessed, that if people are looking, they'll find new work. That's the other thing that we wanted to do. Say, how many dubbing stages are there in Bucharest? I have no idea, right? Well, with the TPN, we will know. I want to talk also really quickly, about some numbers. Okay. Ultimately, we know this is a tremendous task. Anywhere from 3,000 to 5,000 vendors globally service our industry. We know we have to get there in terms from a scale perspective. So we've gone through the first year kind of baking our site security program, baking our model really to say, hey, this is the way we think we're supposed to be doing it. We've gotten through 330 some odd assessments as in completed, like soup to nuts, beginning to end. We have another 700 facilities that are in the questionnaire or selecting the assessor phase. So we kind of look at it within, I would say the first 18 months of the program, we're going to get through 1,000 facilities. The beautiful thing is that rolls over, and that 1,000 becomes 2,000 if we stay on that trajectory path. So, in the worst case scenario, within 3 to 4 years, we're going to blanket the entire industry and make sure that we've seen every facility that works with every content creator and get to that litmus. Right now, we're talking internally also, how do we kind of grease that wheel, that gear, to make that grow faster, scale faster. And that's really what our content owners are challenged with, to say, how do we get there for you? We've also noticed some hiccups in things that we need to correct, right? How do I do a rapid assessment? What happens if it's like I need somebody assessed by Tuesday? Do we have a path towards that? Some just simple entrepreneurial, this is a business first and foremost, that provides customer service, not only to our studio clientele and not only to our vendor clientele, but also to our assessor community. Because the idea is we can do this all together much better than if we were doing it separately. So I think that's it in terms of time. Please feel free to reach out to any of us. Hit up the ttpn.org website. If you're a vendor or an assessor or a content owner and looking to learn more, reach out to us. We're here for you. And I look forward to coming back next year and giving you an update on the great progress around App and Cloud. So thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.